Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Murray. I'm the president of SpotOn Productions. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the SpotOn Spotlight. I'm excited today to have a friend, a vendor, and I guess we'll call Amy a business partner. But I want to welcome Amy Connor with CMO-OnLoan to the SpotOn Spotlight. Amy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Ian. Oh my golly, it is so fun to be here with you.
We have had a lot of opportunities to work together over the years with mutual clients, and I thought you would be a great person to have on this show just because of your depth of knowledge, kind of that subject matter expert in the marketing field with your background. So kind of as we jump into this, tell me a little bit about your background in marketing and what prompted you to start CMO-OnLoan.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I started a corporate career at the Imes Company, which was a privately held business in Dayton. I started there as an intern and then market research and then in marketing. And then in 1999, we were acquired by P&G. And I thought that's a great place for a marketer. So I continued my marketing career there into the brand departments. And then I moved to Luxottica to sell glasses in 2010. And then from there, I went up the ranks to the VP of marketing for LensCrafters North America. After several years in that role, I left that company and thought I was going to go get another VP of marketing job, but I met people like you and your parents in this region who said, man, I could use your firepower. I just don't think I need it every day. And I said, oh my golly, let's not do that, but how about I help you? And that's where CMO-OnLoan came back in 2016.
Excellent. So kind of marketing is a necessary thing that every business really needs to do, but it can be one of those things that's hard to justify. Maybe sometimes people see is like, I can't measure ROI. Like, how do I know what my ROI measurement looks like? How do you see businesses determining what an ROI on marketing efforts looks like when that impact's not always directly measurable?
Yeah, you're so right, Ian. Marketing ROI is so difficult, partly because sometimes it's not the right metric. ROI is return on investment. A lot of times what you're trying to do is to build your awareness. Well, there's no dollar transaction when you're building awareness, so it's super hard. So the way we think about it more is what are you trying to do? And then what are some leading indicators? Lag indicators would be things like, oh, I made a purchase or I had somebody buy or I have a new customer. But leading indicators are like, how many people am I reaching? How many people are engaging? And those are absolutely things that you can measure, especially in the new digital world of marketing.
I think that's really important. So as we talk about kind of bringing people into the organization, we've got our marketing funnel. And what are those key steps that you see when you're identifying a marketing funnel?
Well, we see it in 4 steps. There can be many, many steps, and I recognize a funnel can go in many directions. But the ones we use are build awareness, increase interest, gain commitment, and build relationships. So we just try to keep it simple. And then how we think about that is at the top of the funnel, you're trying to get your name out. It is the long marathon. Your impressions week over week. Sometimes if you have social presence, even how many post impressions are you getting? Simple things that you can track that help you understand, am I in the market? Am I talking to my audience? And then as you go down to the funnel, let's say you want to understand interactions. You want to understand, are people interested? Am I talking and no one's listening? So like Ian, you make great videos because you want video engagement rate. You want to make sure whatever you're putting out there, people are actually watching. And or things like click-through rate, or do they visit my website? So those are the things you kind of get indicators of. If I'm sending a message out there, are people coming down the funnel? And then in gain commitment, if you're a B2B, that has a lot to do with, do you have leads coming in? Are those qualified? How long are things taking once they're in the pipeline? Very much what people might consider a sales function, but it's really part of the same funnel. If you're on the consumer side, it could be your Amazon store, could be e-commerce, it could be retail sales. We work with some restaurants, and it's what are your sales on that day? And then build relationships is all around, are you keeping some of the clients you've got, and are you engaging them? Even going to things like reviews. Are you getting positive reviews? Are you continuing to grow those? Are they stagnant? All of those things can be indicators of how healthy your funnel is.
So really it's KPIs and looking at key performance indicators for each step of the funnel, not as much really what that ROI looks like, because you've got to really hone in on what you're trying to say is a leading indicator of success.
Exactly, as an overall. But like if you go to an event, let's say, and you spend a bunch of money on that event, tracking to see, I'm going to say a B2B example,
Mm-hmm.
how many leads did you get and then how many did you close? That's a little easier to say how much did I spend on this one event,
Yeah.
what are all the activities I did and what I do at the end. But everything else, boy, it's really hard to attribute every single thing to figure out what actually drove it when in theory you actually have to look at all the things.
Yeah, the buildup of your social media presence and what you're doing
Yeah.
in the marketplace and the people that you meet. Are there specific ones that are like your top three in marketing, or is it really just dependent on what each business is?
There is some variation, but what I would say you have to measure something at every phase of the funnel. That's my number one.
Okay.
The biggest issue, and you'll probably ask this later, but is that people just don't track. They don't track anything in the funnel, and then they think their marketing's not paying out. So the first step is to start tracking and track what you have. Don't track things that you don't have. A lot of people are like, well, I need all this data. No, first it's too hard to get to some of the data. So I would say at the top of the funnel, impressions, post impressions from any social channel, or if you are doing ads, you can get that pretty simply. If you're doing even TV or PR, all of those can be recorded. But I always look at that at the top of the funnel. The next one, it depends on what you're doing. So if you're doing ads, click-through rate, or if you're not doing ads and you are doing posts, what's your engagement rate? So just some indication based on all of those people you're touching. What is the rate, the number of people who are paying attention there? We also look at new website visitors. Are people coming to your site? Even our site, which is not a lead generating site, I
Mm-hmm.
still want people to come just look at the tools and things.
Oh, yeah.
And then the ones that are easier than people mostly recognize are the ones that are actually truly sales, generally sales or operations measures if you're in retail. So those are things like how many sales did you have? How many customers did you have? What's the difference over time? And then the one that's oftentimes forgotten is the building relationships with your customers. Is people forget that that's a great source of either referrals or more business down the line, or if somebody moves and goes to another one. So there are lots of measures there that it's a little fuzzier based on the business.
And I think that's a really good one too on the relationships, because sometimes I think that can get kicked to like just a sales role and it's just customer relationships ongoing, but it does have a marketing piece to that as well.
Sure, because it's about all I see marketing is helping the best salesperson, whatever that looks like, scale. So you got a great message, you want to engage, you want to help your customers, and we're just trying to help come alongside and make that easier for that person so they can spend all that energy on that one-to-one relationship. So the same is true for building relationships. If you're growing your business, it's going to be super hard to keep up with all of those different customers.
Mm-hmm.
So marketing come alongside to help.
So what do you see, big picture, the relationship between marketing and sales in an organization?
It is, to me, mandatory. The very best relationships I've ever had in my corporate career and then with CMO-OnLoan have been when we were building plans together with sales. And we saw it as a way to serve the customer, not necessarily as a way to do our functional role. Same is true. They oftentimes, if you're in retail or something, they'll call it operations. Same is true with operations and marketing. Who is touching the customer? The customer doesn't care who the
Right.
function, they care about what their experience is.
Right.
So I would say that is, boy, if everybody could just focus a bit more on that, we would naturally come together and serve the customer better.
A lot less finger pointing. Oh, that's sales job. No, that's marketing's job.
Exactly.
So is the marketing department or role is looking to align those marketing goals with the overall business objectives? How can they do that, ensuring that they're having meaningful measurement? What's the importance of that marketing metric to support the goals of the business? Really providing that holistic view.
Yeah. Well, the first thing to think about is to ask the business owner the question. That's one of the first things. I think I even asked you all as well, what do you want? What
Yeah.
are you trying to do? Give us a direction. And a lot of business owners are relieved, like, oh, okay, you want to actually focus on what I'm doing, not just activities. So That's where we start. And then it comes down to the next step is, all right, well, how do you get your business now? Generally, unless you're a brand new company, you're going to get your business, your next step business, in a similar way than you're doing it right now. So we want to understand what's working and what's not. And then we line up the metrics, those leading indicators like we talked about. Okay, if you want X number of new clients, how many do we need to have in the sales cycle or traffic into the retail store that we think will then convert to a purchase? Okay, well, how many people do we need to reach to figure out who would be interested in coming in? So you just take the math, simple math, and you build it back so that they are connected to the business goals, and then you track it over time to see how you're doing.
So it seems like a lot of times there's this trap of measuring marketing is very, very complicated and only the biggest companies with large marketing departments can do it. But it really sounds like it's just pick something that fits your goals, what you're doing now, and figure out some way to measure that that's going to have some sort of impact on your business.
Absolutely. And even now with all of our clients, we put together KPI trackers and then dashboards. And we, with many of them, look at it every week. And then we find over a week as we're talking about it, it's the discipline of talking about the data that is actually the most powerful thing. And like you said, between sales and marketing, it is that conversation that helps you understand, well, why is that? Or what could we do better? So that puts you in the idea of, oh, we can be better. We can be better together. And sometimes your KPIs will change. Like, for example, we look at the conversion of your website, meaning how many new people come into the website, and then how many of those quote unquote convert, whatever conversion or key actions they call it now. Do they fill out a form, or do they call, or do they subscribe, or whatever you've defined? Well, there's a lot that goes into that. Well, what are they doing when they get to the site? Well, maybe what you're tracking one day doesn't even make any sense. You need to adjust. Well, you adjust, but you're looking at the data, so you can easily talk through that, and it's not some scary thing. So it's always have to adapt.
And so I think that's a good point, is it's not just checking boxes and writing your numbers in every week as you're measuring that, but it is that, okay, what are we learning from this, and how do you pivot off of that?
We do a lot of brainstorming. This is where my creative mind comes in, and it becomes fun because we talk about, hey, here's what we're seeing in the top of the funnel. We don't spend a ton of time on that as long as something's not off track. Okay, great. What's interest? Are we losing interest? Or do we need a new video? And this is literally an example. If we have it out there for a while and we see it start to dip, okay, now it's time to do another one. So we talk about what the results mean and what we've done in the market, which brings just a natural conversation, not about, you said earlier, like, it's not pointing fingers, well, you did this or you did that, because you're looking in hindsight, you're looking in real time, and then you're saying, well, what could we be? And that's really all a question you need to ask. And then that opens up people not to be defensive and not to say, well, but I can't, or this or that, but you could say, well, what do you think we could do together? And then people get to put in conversation, and then it becomes more of a collaboration.
That's awesome. So what on the other side of that, kind of, what are pitfalls that companies face when they're measuring marketing performance, and how can you avoid those common pitfalls?
The first one is they don't measure, or they measure the things that they think they should measure, or they get a dashboard. Let's say it's a digital dashboard, and I'm sure they're probably fine, but a lot of times digital dashboards say something to someone who cares just about digital, not about the whole funnel. Mm-hmm. And so you need to think about that in the context of what you need. Or you need to create your own KPI tracker or dashboard. So that's one, is like, you're either, or two, I guess, you're either not tracking at all and you have no idea, but you just are worried. Or the second one is you're measuring a bunch of things and you're completely overloaded because there's so much data. Going into Google Analytics or ads alone is just overwhelming. So you're looking at so many data points, you're not actually getting information. Those are the two, probably the biggest ones. Or I guess the other last one would be seeing marketing as a moment in time only, and not as an ever-evolving system that you can and will make better.
So you can influence the direction of it over time.
Absolutely.
What about vanity metrics? Everybody's got the, like, oh, I want, this is the metric that makes me feel good.
You pick it that's out there. And especially if you're working with an organization that is being paid by that metric, or and a lot of times what we see is those metrics, they they're good, they're fine, but they're not actually telling you what's going on with the business. So I'll pick on for a second um, return on advertising. Um, so that's great if it's sales, but I was talking to a client who was spending like 50% of their budget on advertising when they weren't being profitable. So that's all fine and good, but if you're not profitable, I don't care about what your return on sales is.
Yeah.
It's not good. So like those are the things you have to think about as a business, not just as a marketing vanity metric.
Nice. Yeah. Spending a lot of money and getting like two customers out of it, even if they're high dollar customers, but if the math doesn't make sense at the end, it's not worth it.
Yeah. You got to take it all the way down to the P&L, and that's one place where marketers, they don't always have a view to it, which is totally fair. They don't always see that side of it, but you have to look at what's the cost. Because really, I had a client tell me one time that sales are for show and profits for dough. So you have to think about the profit, not just the sale. And sometimes marketers don't look that far down, or they don't have the data, or they don't estimate it. So they're blind to it. But that's what I see sometimes as well.
So then you might need to ask for that data. That might be a good thing
Yeah.
to have that conversation. Say, hey, I'd really like to know how this affects our bottom line. Can we have that conversation?
Yeah, and sometimes, like our business owners, it's all privately held. I tell them it's okay if I don't know the profit number. I don't need to know that detail, but you need to help me understand where we are in that. So you don't
Okay,
have to push people if they're not comfortable.
that makes sense. So in today's digital landscape, stuff changes very quickly, especially with the advent of AI coming in and kind of touching every aspect of businesses. How do you recommend companies adapt their marketing measurement strategies based on this like rapidly changing environment, so they don't get distracted or it's the shiny new object? How do you make sure that you're remaining agile but still focused?
You have to start with the discipline of understanding the data. One of the things we do with many of our clients who haven't looked at data like this is we don't just create the KPI tracker, but we also walk them through and say, okay, here's what we think about when we look at this data. Because anything can be overwhelming. And a lot of the tools and templates, they're great and they help you scale a good discipline, but they cannot replace a good discipline. So we do a lot of talking with them about the good old fashioned, is this what we want? Is this a benchmark? Should we find a benchmark? Is this what we expect? Are we doing better than we did last year? If so, why? So we ask a lot of questions that we may not know the answer to, but they know the answer to. But it's forcing them to think about the business and how marketing impacts it versus what's the latest tool or what's the latest thing they're thinking about and how to adapt. Because it's those questions are what drive you to making a new decision. And that's another thing we run into. There's a lot of data out there you can't make any decisions on. So we will cut back. We usually choose fewer KPIs than more because a lot of times, A, it's overwhelming,
Yeah.
and B, you can't make a decision. Like, what am I going to do about that? I can literally not make a decision on that. So it's maybe nice to know, but I'm just not going to spend time on it.
And you mentioned tools that might make things easier. You also mentioned you start with a spreadsheet's a really great way to start tracking your KPIs. What's the role of technology and analytics tools in that success? Is there a favorite tool you have, or your favorite thing is that tried and true spreadsheet?
Well, people who know me. I love Excel. I've been working with Excel since right before WYSIWYG. So that don't age me too much. But so I'm comfortable with Excel, and everybody has Excel.
Yeah.
So for us and our clients, that's why we start there. We try to start as simply as possible because we want to use a tool they can use. Then, if you look at, there's some phenomenal platforms out there. If you look at even just Google Analytics and Google Ads, those are really good tools. And you have the Looker Studio that you can build and create dashboards for yourself. So if you're looking at digital advertising, there's some great things. LinkedIn and Meta both have their own tools. Consolidating them, there are a bunch of great tools. I haven't found one that works for our clients necessarily all over the place.
Yeah.
Just because, like, if you look at Power BI or Tableau or one of those, a lot of times they're integrated into ERP, or they're much bigger. They're much bigger learning curve because they're meant for a lot of data like that. And our clients just aren't ready for that for marketing. They're not even tracking. So going from that to Power BI would be difficult. So maybe that's the step. We're always like, what's the next best step? And the next best step, and then the tool. And I guarantee you the tools will get better and better and better. And I'd love to see a tool that helped bring together a holistic funnel view. And right now it's still pretty clunky, but it'll get there.
Yeah. I think the simple is where it's at for a lot of people, especially I know in our business. I'm very busy, so making sure you get those couple of key things you can be disciplined about is really important.
Yeah, because some of the CRMs also have tools. They're usually sales focused. Like HubSpot has one that can be marketing and sales. So there are definitely some if you're already using that tool. I just haven't found one you're like, oh yeah, everybody has to use this one.
Yeah, that's like the silver bullet that everybody needs.
Yeah. Oh, I wish. I'd love to have that. But
So what advice would you give to a business leader who's just beginning to really formalize that marketing measurement strategy? They've been throwing some strategies at the wall, but they know they need to measure something. How would you recommend somebody get started?
start tracking by week if you can, and pick a couple of metrics from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. They might not be right to start, but start and track them, things that you can track easily, like meaning by pull a number, not having to pull 10 different sources to get the single number. And just track and start looking at it, like we say, week over week. Create the habit of looking at your data and talking about it. And that is the number one effective, the most effective way we've seen it work with our clients.
It's that old piece of advice, the hardest step in a 1,000-mile journey is that first step. It's getting started. It's beginning to do something.
You're so right. Yeah. And then looking at your first KPI tracker and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so that's why we try to help them with, okay, here's the question you ask. Here are the things that are there that are good, but you don't need to worry too much about. So helping them, just like in many other areas that I don't understand, helping me understand the framework. How do I think about this? And that's what I'd recommend. Begin and tie it to your business. You will care more as a business owner if marketing is somehow tied, or you believe that it's a leading indicator to your business. If you don't, it's going to feel just like another report that isn't relevant to you.
And I like that idea of just building that consistency, build the reps, because then you have data. Now you can do something with the data and make those decisions. If you're not doing it, you don't have anything you can even work with. So getting started is really important. Yeah,
sometimes we have even our interns maintain some of our KPI trackers for clients, and then over a period of time, like one of the best statements I had just recently is we had a client that was struggling to implement some of the things because they are all busy and have full-time jobs besides marketing. And on the call, we showed them a simple tracker that showed what happened when they did a couple of posts on LinkedIn with a video. And they said, you showed us what our activity can do to impact our marketing effort. And now we're encouraged to go do more. And that's all we're looking for. Like, that was a high day for us.
And that's key. I saw the needle move and I know what caused it, instead of just saying, I have no idea. We did a bunch of things and we have no idea what caused that. Lets you focus your efforts, say, hey, this worked really well. Let's do more of that.
Yeah. And that's really fun when you get that. Not often, but it's really fun.
I love that. All right, Amy, changing gears slightly, what's the best piece of business advice that you've ever gotten or that you love to give to other people?
I'll go back to the IMS company where I started. It was run by a gentleman named Clay Mattil, and his total focus was on the end user, which was the dog and cat, and then that customer who was the pet parent. And our vision and our mission were so aligned, and even after not working there since 2000, I still remember it. So getting focused on who you serve and why you serve them, and then making decisions in your business has been something he never told us that necessarily, he just did it. And then I learned it over the years, and we do it in our company now too, and many of our clients do it without even realizing it. But finding someone you want to serve and then living that every day with decisions big and small is probably the best business advice I could give, and I have received and lived throughout my career.
That's great advice. Clay Mathiel is such an interesting guy too. I know he started Aileron here locally in Cincinnati and just continued to give back and help businesses focus, like you said, focus on the customer and what's important for them and their business to succeed. So
it really was a blessing.
That's incredible. All right, Amy, where can people find you online and how can they connect with you?
Well, my LinkedIn is Amy Connor, so I'd love to connect with anybody who's interested. And then my email is amy@cmo-onloan.com.
Excellent. And what's the number one way you're helping clients? If somebody watched this today and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start, how can CMO-OnLoan and you help them out?
Our promise is to build your marketing confidence and capability. So wherever you are in your journey, we are there to meet you, and then we want to get you to the next best step that you're comfortable. So that's what we try to do every day.
That's awesome. And you guys have resources on your website as well, correct?
Yes, we have a ton of free resources in our blog that we share openly because we want you to be confident, and if you can use it, that's terrific.
Excellent. Amy, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. This was a fantastic conversation. My takeaway, having worked with you, just looking at this again, is be consistent because it can be very hard to be consistent over time. So I'm going to definitely focus on that over the next couple of weeks here, try and get back on that very regular rhythm.
I get you. Thank you, Ian. It's been really my pleasure.
Perfect. Thanks, Amy.
Take care.